Let's see here. Hey, folks, how you doing? First live stream in a long time. We've got Bryan Marx here from the Marx Mortgage Group joining us. I think this is we're doing the update, for interest rates, the housing market here in Tampa. There's just so much to talk about today, and it is a live stream. So a few of you, if you do happen to join us, please leave things in the comments. Any questions, answer where you're from. We'd love to see where everybody's from too. That being said, if you're watching this on the recorded side of things, this video is going to be all about, just an update mid-year on the market here in 2024. We're going to talk about some juicy stuff. Redfin just came out saying that Tampa is one of the top 3 cooling markets in the country, which I think is a little questionable. And we're going to back that up with some data. We're also going to talk about where interest rates are now and what does that mean for us, for those of you that are looking to buy a home here in 2024, or maybe even in 2025 and you're just planning ahead. And then we're going to talk about just different techniques, because we do happen to work with a bunch of you folks that are moving from out of state or out of town, or even locally, that are just making that transition of, I got to sell a house, I got to buy a house, I'm getting a new job. A lot of question marks come up. So, where do we start with this? Ryan, talk to me about where the market is. Where are interest rates right now? For those of us that may not watch it day to day, it's always moving. Where are things at? Where are we at right now?
So we've definitely gotten some reprieve in terms of interest rates. Helps buying power a good amount. If we go back to where we peaked, like October, November 2023, come down a good amount. We peaked, in the 8% range. Right now, they're hovering upper 6s, low 7s for the majority of people. Obviously, there's some outliers if you got low credit or anything like that, but that's where the majority of them are. So we've shaved off a good amount from where they peaked. The biggest question is obviously, where are they going? Obviously, nobody's got the crystal ball at the end of the day, but what Wall Street is projecting right now is they're banking on a September rate cut and possibly one more rate cut before the end of the year. Does that come true? We'll obviously have to see. There's obviously a little bit of a variance between what the markets think is going to happen and what the Fed's saying. Markets are saying, we're still thinking there's going to be 2 rate cuts this year. The Fed's still saying, we don't have enough data to determine if we can do rate cuts this time. As we get more data, we will evaluate it at that time. So everybody's trying to play the guessing game right now.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this now you've been joining me here for about a year off and on, just giving us those really good updates. Every now and then we always like to pull out that crystal ball, which at some point I'm sure that we're going to do that today as well, to kind of guess what's coming up in the future, educated guess, right, of what's coming up in the future. But everything's been tracking still, right? Everything we've been saying, hey, look, time will tell on this, but interest rates will drop and interest rates will come down eventually. However, what that looks like, it's not going to be 3%, right? Those days are kind of over.
Don't wait for those days. They're not coming back.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever see a 3, even 4 organically without doing anything to the rate, without buying it down or anything?
There's going to have to be something big that happens.
Disastrous kind of?
Exactly. Like COVID, for example, that's what sent rates down. Before that, the great financial crisis. World War III, who knows? Something big's got to happen for that to happen in our lifetime, to see those maybe 2s and 3s again. I don't think we will ultimately see that.
5 to 6 range is pretty healthy.
I think 5 to 6 is going to be the healthy range. That's a normal balanced market, and people have to understand, sure, maybe I'm paying a little bit more in interest, but at the same time, I'm getting more in interest too. My money on my bank account's not earning the 0.01% that it was before, or I'm getting pennies. I'm getting 1%, 2%, 3%, sometimes more.
5%, yeah, sometimes.
Yep.
Are you still seeing a lot of buy downs on your side of things?
We're definitely seeing a good amount of buy downs right now, which obviously makes sense. You can take advantage of it. Sellers are more willing to give closing costs. Obviously, builders are giving a lot of closing costs for buy downs too, to get people's payments where they want to be. And I have plenty of clients right now, went under contract within the last 1 to 2 weeks, got seller credit. They bought down their rate into the 5s. So at that point, the interest rate is no longer an issue. Why wouldn't you buy at that point? You've got the interest rate that you were waiting for. It makes sense.
What's funny too is the other day I was reading, everybody always asks, is the market crashing? What's going on? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I have people calling us daily, interested in moving here, or locally saying, hey, I love the suburbs. I want out of the city, or, hey, I want to move to this area of the city. Can you help me out? So yes, interest rates in the mortgage side, that's your department. That's where you help people out and you try to get, fun with the rates and different buy downs and different techniques depending on what everybody's needs are. Because some people want, the money in their pocket. Some people want to buy down their rate depending on their plan. So it looks different for everybody, right?
Yep. Everybody's situation is totally different.
But what I thought was funny was an article that came out just recently that was Redfin. I think it was a couple of days ago. Redfin said top cooling markets in the country, and Tampa was in the top 3. I don't know. I questioned that because I was like, man, all the traffic and everything I'm seeing whenever I look at data and whenever we have listings, right? I don't know. My home seems to still be selling pretty quickly. So I had to look up stuff to back that up. And I found, as I'm looking for that, I'm also coming across other articles that were saying like, Tampa is one of the top areas that people are moving to. So it's like, they're still moving, but yet it's a cooling market. Like, I don't know. One doesn't seem to jive with the other per se, but I'm going to share this with everybody.
What's the data actually telling us?
What does the data say, right? This is direct. This is of April because stats always have a lag as they calculate them, right? So this is as of the end of April. This is single family homes specifically for Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater, which is our Tampa Bay area, right? What I found interesting, this is always comparing year to year. So this is this year. And then if you look over here, this is going to be April 2023, same month. And then it shows the percentage change. I don't see a whole lot of negatives on this line. I see pending inventory and I see, median time to sale and new pending sales. That's it. Everything else is a positive number. But either way, dissecting that, right? If it's a cooling market, you usually see prices going down. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the median home price in Tampa was $400,000. It's $417,000, an increase in April year over year of 4.5%. Values are still going up here slightly, which is a healthy thing. We don't want it to go 20% up, but it is increasing. And then we see median percent of original list price. So what it listed at versus what it sold at, 97%. That's pretty good, within 3%. Median time to contract, cooling market, you think sit on the market for 60 days, 90 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're looking at the average here. So 27 days was last year. Now it's 28 days. It's not even a 1% change. So, or a 1-day change, I'm sorry. That being said, homes are going under contract in 28 days. It's not 1 week, which I don't want that, right? We want 30 days. That's a healthy market. And then down here, supply of inventory. So we have had an influx of listing. You and I have always talked about on some of our old podcasts, and I say old, like 6 months, a year. We try to check in every quarter to every 6 months, but we've always talked about the golden handcuffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that have never watched those old ones, Bryan, can you explain what like golden handcuffs are for home sellers or buyers?
Golden handcuffs are basically you're locked into your house. You can't go anywhere because if you sell your current house, your new payment on your new house is going to be much more expensive. So you're sitting on a 2% interest rate and you're saying, well, I'm just going to stay put, even though I'm out of space for my family. My kids are living in the same room together. We can't live in this house anymore, but I'm going to have to stay put. We're starting to see the golden handcuffs come off at this point.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to trade out my 3% for 7%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going on is we're starting to see those come out. We're starting to see people, you know what? The market's a little more predictable. We can see these 7% being a thing. A lot of people were waiting. They're just waiting for that rate to drop before making a move. And that means they're stuck there. And after 1 year goes by and then 2 years go by, and really, we always like to predict this and say, hey, things are going to drop, but when? And when they do drop, is it worth waiting 3 years or 2 years to some of these folks for a 1% drop? I don't know that it is worth 1% drop. That's not going to change things. And not only that, but you're waiting for a 1% drop. But if you waited 2 years now, you're talking 4 to 10% of equity. Because as we just saw on this stat sheet here, just last year to this year went up 4.5%. If you bought from that 1 month to month, right? So my point is that yes, we're starting to see those come off, and it's right here. Inventory on active listings. Last year we had 5,900 listings, and now we have 10,000. So that's a big jump in inventory, which is nice because we were so low. And what I mean by that is we had 1.7 months of inventory. And I think you explained it best on one of those older videos. The way to explain inventory quickly is if we stopped putting houses on the market right now, in 1.7 months, all the houses would be gone, right? We'd have no more houses to sell. Well, now that number's 3 months. So it's not that they've been sitting longer because we can see that median time to contract is 28 days. It's that we have more inventory. So it takes longer to absorb that inventory, right? So that being said, this is a healthy 3 months is a really nice amount of inventory. It gives people the option while they're shopping to maybe look at a couple extra homes before making that decision. They just have more options. Doesn't mean that the houses are sitting longer, right? Now, what I find funny is that, getting off that graphic for a moment, is that article by Redfin said the housing market is cooling. And it definitely said that, like, you know, it really focused on that people were dropping the listing price. And everybody is like, oh my God, prices are falling. Number one, prices have always fallen. You know, I've always fell. And it's because a listing agent or a seller is going to price it as competitively or as high as they can. And if they don't get it, then they start to chip away, right? Well, the article was funny. If you really start to read into it, it says that they found that I think it was 46% of listings or 41% of listings had a price reduction. And it's like, okay, that's a big change. Oh my God. But then it looks back as, you know, last year it was 36% or 38%. It's like,
not much of a change.
Homes always drop the price because they're trying to test the market. That's part of listing a home at a certain number. So I don't know. I just find that you can't just go off of big articles. You just really got to, you know, go off of that. So got a couple questions here. I'm gonna answer real quick, and then Bryan and I are gonna still get into it. For any of you folks watching, I do answer some of these live questions. We're gonna get to you, Ruben, right now. In between all these, we're gonna go back to some of the questions that we know that people ask us, which are gonna be, you know, when you're moving, what about if I need to find a job? What if I need to sell a house to buy a house? What are some of those tips and tricks to, like, kind of navigate that, right? So Ruben, you have us asked a question about why HOAs are, you know, high in Tampa. So first off, it depends on the neighborhood that you're going to. A lot of times we're going to see HOAs. Like if you look at a premier neighborhood like Greater Carrollwood, right? Greater Carrollwood was built in the 70s. A lot of the parks and playgrounds and things like that were built out years ago. But I can tell you firsthand, it's one of the nicest communities to live in. And the HOA is $600 a year. That's like $50 a month. That's not bad. And that's because it's an older community that has all this stuff built out. Now, if you're referring to some of the newer communities, like let's just call it Epperson, the big lagoon community that everybody sees in Wesley Chapel, right? Huge lagoon with beach lined, you know, side, you know, there's Wi-Fi hotspots through the community. There's golf cart lanes and all these different parks and playgrounds in it, right? Those are all what I call the bells and whistles that communities put into things. So in Epperson, and don't quote me because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say that the HOA is about $110 a month. And then they have a CDD as well. So what a CDD is anytime you have those big communities with all the bells and whistles, you're going to have CDD fees, which is basically as the community is building out, the developer is like, hey, we're going to pull out this loan to build all of these projects in parks and playgrounds and things. And then we're going to divvy that up amongst all the houses, and they're going to pay that yearly on top of their taxes. And that's just going to be something to maintain all these items, right? So, and I always tell people, like, if you're not a person that's ever going to use any of those things, let's find a community without those. But otherwise, if you have kids and you want that atmosphere, yeah, I mean, there's a cost associated to having those. So the HOA is probably about $110 a month in that community. And then you've got about another $2,400 a year for the CDD. So I would say, let's just throw it out there and say $300 a month for the HOA and CDD. To a lot of people, I would say that's a little pricey when you just say it like that. It's like $300 a year a month to live here. But let's always look at it. And I say it's case by case because every community is different. So in Epperson or any of the lagoon communities, they include Wi-Fi. which is like a 1 gig or 1 terabyte, whatever it is, speed. I mean, it's super fast, like one of the fastest out there. And you have that in hotspots, like even at the lagoon. So if you're working from your computer, you can go and get out of your house and you still have a hotspot. And then it also includes like 165 channel cable channel package. So you're getting Wi-Fi and cable, man. That's like $150 a month, if not more, right, Brian? I don't know what you spend, but and I don't know anybody these days that doesn't have Wi-Fi. So breaking down that $300, it's like, well, really, that's about $150 a month, you know, to have this beautiful lagoon that you don't have to maintain. You have access, you have passes for your friends and family, and then you have all these trails and parks and playgrounds. Again, I think it all goes down to choosing your lifestyle, if that makes sense for you. So yes, sometimes the fees are there, but you know, you get to pick and choose if you like those amenities, and sometimes you get things back where it really softens the blow a little bit. Ruben, let me know if that helped a little bit, or if I was if that didn't answer it for you. Crispin, looking for a house this year. Awesome, man. Listen, reach out to us, shoot us an email. All of our stuff's always in the description, and my team would love to help you. Even if you're a year out, or I guess you said this year, reach out to us. We'd love to help that planning process. We always like to help people find the lifestyle, and then get you with Bryan to discuss, you know, what the payments look like, what are things like that as we start to go through it. All right. All right. So Bryan, let's jump into another one of our questions. Folks, if you're watching, please leave your comments in the comments, or any questions you have. We'd love to answer that for you. So Bryan, let's talk about folks that are, you know, looking to make that move. I think Crispin just said, hey, I'm looking for a house this year. Some people need a job first, right? You can't just move here if you're out of state, or even move and you change careers and you're like, wait a minute, I make really good money in Chicago. I'm coming to Tampa. You know, what does that look like? What do people need to know before just making that move with the job?
So you've got to have an income stream, right? If you live in Chicago and let's say you work at a doctor's office, if you're moving to Tampa, you're not going to be able to work there anymore unless they allow you to work remote. Remote work became a big thing ever since COVID. A lot of people can move here, keep their same jobs, work remotely, no issues at all. Another one, you work for a big company, you can transfer. They've got locations here. We say that a lot. No issues at all. Everything stays the same. Now, when you're going to be getting a different job, couple things to look for. One, if you're a business owner out of state and you're looking to move, we're going to look at what kind of business it is. Let's say if you own an IT consulting company, perfect. You can live anywhere in the country. You can do the same work. Let's say if you're a concrete contractor, for example, you can't do that in multiple different states. So if you move down here, you're starting your business over. You're going to have to wait a period of time, typically 1 to 2 years, before you establish history of clients, and then we can use that income. Now, what we can do is basically close with just an offer letter. So if you can get an offer letter from an employer and you can send it to us, we can use that. You can get pre-approved. You can actually even close on your home with just an offer letter. And then what we're going to do is after closing, make sure we're going to verify with the employer that you started, no contingencies, anything like that. But you can close. So you can actually get your offer letter while you're still living in another state, move down here, close, or even close and then move down here before you even start your job. No issues at all. What we're going to look for on that offer letter are a couple different things. It's all about the verbiage. So the verbiage is very big when it comes to that. If it says something like, you're going to be paid hourly, you could work up to 40 hours per week, that's no bueno, not going to fly. If it says you will work 40 hours per week, that's what the underwriter wants to see, because obviously then we can predict what your income is going to be. It says you're going to be working variable hours. That's another very tough one. Not to say that's not possible, very tough to get through. If you are full commission, so let's say you worked at your car salesman at a dealership up in Boston, you're going to be working for a dealership down here. That's also very tough. If you're 100% commission, usually we're going to want to see that you have some base income that we can use, because differences in sales, you may move down here, start your job. You may not make a sale for 6 months. That's how an underwriter is going to look at it. So they want to look at what can we reasonably predict, what's stable, what makes us feel comfortable with this.
Now, Bryan, I know in a few scenarios, are they going to want, let's say you take a new job, let's say it's W-2 or whatever that is, that's fine, great, yeah. are they going to want to see a pay stub prior to closing, or what does that look like?
No, typically, as long as it's a full-time salary or hourly job, we can fund with just the offer letter. So, and by fund, you can close on your new home. We are going to want to get a pay stub after closing and a confirmation from your employer that you have started. But if it's a salary or hourly job, totally fine. It doesn't even need to be in the same line of work. So that's a big misconception I see from a lot of people. Somebody will say, hey, I went from the medical industry. Now I'm getting into insurance. We don't care. If you have predictable, stable income on an offer letter, we can use that.
Cool. Now, Eric in the comments, let me go ahead and show that. Eric said, my wife and I both do well financially, and she's taking an opportunity in Tampa next year. Congrats.
Very nice.
Is it possible to put a smaller amount down on a home and still get a $500,000 home?
So Eric, if you guys are first-time home buyers, yes, you can do a 3% down payment, $15,000 on $500,000. If you're not first-time home buyers, conventional requires 5% down, and first-time home buyer is defined as someone who hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So it doesn't have to be your whole life. It's just within the last 3 years. So if you're on a $500,000 house, $25,000. It doesn't have to be a big chunk of money.
Yeah. And the first one you mentioned, what was that?
That's conventional. That's if you're a first-time home buyer, you can put down 3%. So 3%.
3%. Now, let's say you had a house 2 years ago. Maybe you're selling a house to buy a house and they still want to make that move affordable. You still have FHA. Yep,
you can still do FHA. You're right there on the cusp at $500,000 because FHA's maximum loan limit is $498,000. Yep. So you're like right there. You couldn't go that much above there for FHA, but with conventional, you could still do a 5% down payment.
All right, so conventional 3%, FHA if you haven't owned a home in 3 years, FHA at 3.5%, even though that you're right at that loan limit, right? And so if we're talking 600,000, it doesn't play, but 500K and under, you're good to go. And then, of course, VA is an option if you're VA guys, 100% financing 100%. On a lot of things. And then I know a lot of people ask us about new loan products. Is there anything out there that is worth chatting about? And I'm going to put an asterisk on that with worth chatting about, is because I know way back in the day, they were running like 5,000 all the way up to 15,000 for, there was like a loan or a grant even, but there was really harsh income limits on that. And you can only buy up to a certain amount of home. Is there anything out there that's even worth mentioning right now in our area?
So there's the Hometown Heroes, which comes back on July 1st. Big one for first-time home buyers. It's come and gone a couple times. The program will get funded. Eventually the funds will get exhausted. It did just get $100 million from the state of Florida. So first-time home buyers definitely want to take advantage of it. Basically how it works, you can get a 5%, so 5% of your loan amount up to a maximum of $35,000. Your household income just has to be under $143,000. So you can make good income for the program and still qualify for it. The big kicker is you have to be employed by a Florida-based company. So either their headquarters is here, or if it's, let's say, a big company that has 500 locations, you're actually physically working in that particular office. It can't be considered remote work. Otherwise, the program is not allowed for that. But that's a big program that goes live on July 1st. Now, how long it's going to be around, we don't know. There's been a lot of talk about it. Everyone's talking about it. So, expect those funds to probably get exhausted within, my guess would be 3 to 4 months. That's about how long it lasted last time, and they had 100 million. Yeah, probably right around there.
All right, cool. Folks, anybody watching, I'm going to take 2 seconds of your time to tell you, subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't already. And right in the banner there, same handle, tampa.florida.living. On Instagram, we opened up an Instagram account back in December, around Christmas time. Got 30,000 followers organically. And we just love showcasing our city, all the fun things to do. We put fun things to do every week if you're here. And then outside of that, we just really took a different approach and showcased like best rooftop bars, best restaurants, fun things to do. Just really try to make it a fun thing. So if you're ever looking for another resource for Tampa, please, by all means, check out our Instagram and give us some love. Outside of that, if anybody has any other comments, please leave them in our questions. Leave them in the comments. We'd love to get to those. And Bryan, let's talk about something else. People ask, should they buy a house? Is now a good time to buy a house? We got 7% interest rate. We just talking about all this stuff, right? Is now the time to buy a house? I mean, I have the same answer you do. What is your answer?
My answer is, it really kind of feeds off something Warren Buffett always has said: time in the markets over timing the markets at the end of the day. So the smart people aren't waiting to buy real estate. They're buying real estate and then waiting. If you're looking at long-term appreciation, you're not timing the market. The longer you hold your home, the more it's going to appreciate, obviously. If you're comfortable with the payments, just buy the house.
Yeah. I mean, most people are going to say, oh, you got a mortgage guy and you got a realtor on here. I know what the answer is going to be. It's yes. If I always tell people, reach out and let's talk about your plan, because everybody's plan is different. I don't say yes. I say, let's talk about what that looks like to you and what are your goals. If somebody ever says, and I know you say this to people too, if somebody ever says, hey, I want to buy a house. If I have to move in 2 years, can you kind of tell me if I'm going to make my money back? Is it a safe bet? And I know I'm going to say, man, I don't have that crystal ball for you. Mm-hmm. And I know you're going to say the same thing. Like maybe we should rethink this, right? That being said, if somebody ever said, I want to set roots in a place, I want a good place for my family, I want to live here, or I'm a young professional, I want opportunity, and I want to, get me in a home like that, like a starter home where I can be proud of my home and I can do things to it and this and that. And I want to be in this location. It makes sense for me. Yeah, let's do this. It makes sense. And let's be strategic. Let's talk about your finances to see if it makes sense to you, because there's a lot of times I can argue for somebody, to rent. There's a lot of times that people will call me and say, Adam, get me in a house. I've sold homes from people that are moving here virtually, right? Like they've never even set foot in the house or the area. They're like, just buy me the house. I trust you. Let's move after our conversations. And I'm like, okay, I don't love that all the time. I'd rather you see the house. But other people are really hesitant. They're saying, hey, I think I might need to come for 1 year and understand the areas first. What do you think? And I'm like, I think that's a great plan. I don't think you can go wrong with moving here and figuring it out things for 1 year, but everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. And during that 1 year, let's work together if you decide to rent, because I want to understand your lifestyle and let me suggest that so you can experience things and then let's buy. But a lot of people don't want to move twice. They have a lot of moving parts. Some people are like, hey, let's just do the work up front. So I feel like that's a really good one.
I think we did have a couple questions.
Yeah, let me get some questions. Jazz, I know you're not giving me love, but that's okay. You blew right past my question. I did not. Yes, he is right.
I know what question was. It was, Brian, are you part of an HOA? I'm not part of an HOA. I live in the city, so there are no HOAs in city of Tampa, unless you're living in a townhouse or a condo.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in the city as well. However, I did live in Cheval and Lutz, and I did experience the HOA. I'll be honest, some HOAs are worse than others. The HOA, the idea, the way I look at it is like, hey, my neighbor is not going to paint their house sparkly pink, right? And I got to pay for that. When I lived in Cheval, man, I had a tile roof, and they were telling me all the time, like every other year, pressure wash your tile roof, because we would get like that algae buildup because we're in Florida and it rains a lot. And I was like, damn, every year I got to pressure wash my roof or pressure wash my driveway. But I tell you what, my house looked great. So there's the plus and the minus that comes with that. That was a more strict HOA. I've also seen other ones where it's not so bad. So you can always look into it and get a feel for it by talking to neighbors or getting that experience. I have, like, my uncle lives up in Lutz in a different community, and he says it's nice. Carrollwood, that's an HOA community, but it's only $600 a year. And they'll still tell you to maintain your house, but they're not going to knock you over the head if you forget to bring your garbage can in one day, right? So Andy J asked a question going back, Brian, to the course. I'm sorry, what is it? The Heroes?
The Hometown Heroes. Yep. So do you need
to take a class?
You do need to take a class. We would hold off on having you take that class until you go under contract on a property. Super easy. It's an online course we'd send to you. Basically takes 3, maybe 4 hours, and then you pass the test, and that's all we need. We take care of everything else, all the paperwork with the state. You would just take the class. So on your end, very minimal.
Yep. Guys, keep bringing the questions because we love them. I mean, that's why we're here, trying to be a resource for you. So if you do have any questions, whatever it looks like, drop it in the comment section for us, and we'll definitely get to it. Bryan, we talked about getting a job. We talked about, with people, those moving parts and those hurdles that it takes sometimes. And I just mentioned, interest rates are definitely a part of this move. It's tough sometimes. And it's not always the perfect time to buy. Sometimes jumping into a rental might be best for you and your family, while you figure things out, or while you're building credit or those different things. But let's say you are in a good position to make that move. Let's say you have the job. You feel good about buying a house and you want to make that move, but you have a house to sell, because that's the same scenario whether you're local or whether you're away, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those things that we have in play? I know we talked about contingency sales, lease back, bridge loans. What are some of those different things that we see happening, or those hurdles that we have while making that move?
Sure.
Can you talk to me about contingency sales?
So logistically, contingent sales, I would say, are what we probably see the most of. Most people can't really afford to carry two properties at the same time. So a contingent sale is where you'd write up your contract for a new property down here, and you'd say, this contract is contingent on the sale of my property on X date. So let's say, for example, you're closing on July 1st. Your current and perfect situation, what we typically see is July 1st, you're going to sell your property in the morning, close on your new property in the afternoon. Requires a little bit of legwork, but is definitely doable. Sounds a little bit overwhelming, but we see it every single day. That's the best situation. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag, so you may sell your property a couple days beforehand, and then obviously road trip down to Tampa, close on your new property, and then move in. So contingent sales is basically your contract on the new property is contingent on selling your existing property. So for something, if it doesn't happen or there's some issue, you've got an out. You're not locked into that contract.
Yeah. And then with lease backs, a lot of times we're saying, okay, well, I want to make that move, but I'm like, I need more time in my house, right?
Mm-hmm. So a lease back typically, it's for any number of reasons. Sometimes people need more than a day or a couple days. Maybe they need a week, or even sometimes I've seen 30 days.
Yep.
Basically, you're just allowing them. So then the new buyers of your current property are allowing you to stay in that property for a certain period of time before you're required to move out. So if you have a buyer of your current property, and let's say you're closing end of this month, but your new property doesn't close until the middle of July, that's the perfect situation for you, because you don't have to get out and go stay at a hotel for a couple of weeks where you're paying $300 a night for a hotel. Those new buyers are going to let you stay in that home for a couple of weeks. We call that a lease back. So sometimes they may say, sure, you can do it for free. We've seen that plenty of times. Other times they say, look, if you give me, $400 or $500 or $1,000, yes, you can stay there for another couple of weeks. Yep. So it helps bridge the gap in between those two closings happening.
Yep. All right. So we got a couple questions I want to fire off. I know we skipped over bridge loans, but we'll be right back on that one, just because I think that's important for some people to understand. Let's see here. Where was it? Cooper. Cooper said, what are your thoughts on the Spring Hill area? I love the Strabane model. The Strabane model is William Ryan Homes. Nice model. As far as Spring Hill, that is an area that, it's funny, if you were to ask a local, like from Tampa, they say, man, isn't that kind of a quiet area? That's kind of a sleepy area. It's out there, like it just always was like slow paced. It's almost like something, if I were to say, like, what about Apollo Beach or something? Like, it was always a very slower area, like, just a slow area. Now, things have changed, man. As the city is turning into like this cosmopolitan city, and a lot of our suburbs are starting to really expand and blow up. I mean, if you ask somebody 5, even 10 years ago what Spring Hill was compared to today, you're going to get very different answers. So I would always, I say it's a growing area. That area, the Newport Richey area, Trinity, Odessa, like all of that region is really starting to grow. And I always go back to the same thing, is it has to match your lifestyle, man. So what I mean by that is, where are you working? If you're working in downtown Tampa, don't go to Spring Hill. If you want access to Tampa, to the international airport, yeah, maybe that makes sense. You can make that. But if you just want like a slower pace of living, that still is where that is. And they have some nicer new communities. So always, it doesn't matter if you're asking me how Wesley Chapel is. I can't just tell you, nice area, move there. It's find out what your daily routine is. Do you go out to dinner often? So then you got to make sure restaurants are around you. Where are schools if you have kiddos? You know, where are you traveling on the weekly basis? So if that makes sense for you, and we can help you look into that for Spring Hill, then yeah, Spring Hill's a good area for you, man. I don't think any area is bad, and I can tell you that each area has its unique characteristics. You know, I just did a video on acreage living, and I did one up in Hudson, which is north of Spring Hill. And some people were like, man, that's in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, yeah, but you have no idea how many people want to be in the middle of nowhere. Literally, they don't want to be in the happening places. So there is a lid for every pot, literally. And I think that we would just have to dive into, you know, to that with you. And I hope that answers you, but it is a lot more popular than it used to be. Let's just say that. Okay. Jonathan, the Camden model, awesome floor plan with DR Horton. That's that multi-gen where it has that mother-in-law suite on the side. Is it in Mirada? I'm going to share my screen with you. Did it go from 550 to 517? Not to my knowledge. I probably, you know, this is probably back end stuff, but I can tell you that I get all of the homes from DR Horton every Thursday. So as of this last Thursday, if I had to go to Mirada right here, let's see, Camden model right here is 545. I got another one at 542, 545, and 546. So quick answer, nope. The Camden model is not 517. In saying that, the only way that I would say that it was 517 is if for some reason they had like a flash sale on something. I don't know that it would go that low. I do know that they were running a special offering like 20 to 30,000 in closing costs. So there is potential that you could maybe buy some flex money to buy some of that price down, or more than likely closing costs. But no, I don't think that they're going to just drop it down to 517 unless it's like a closeout. For example, like Epperson is probably getting close to closing out. Maybe you'll find a closeout deal, but that's about it. And you can reach out to us anytime to get those updates too, because like I said, weekly we get those questions. What else? Andy J, why do I keep seeing houses go pending only to show up again weeks later? Is this a strategy to pressure people used by agents? I never saw this up in Massachusetts. Keep seeing it here in Tampa. No, man. Really, there's a couple different angles there that I could think of. So why does a house go pending and then it goes back up? One, we've got a lot of investors looking in this market. We've got a lot of out-of-state people, you know, looking to move here. And I've seen different techniques where, and this is probably a realtor thing, where they might guide their buyer to be like, hey, man, let's just put it under contract, fly in and check out the house, right? And then when they come and see it, they're like, nah, I don't like it. And then it goes back pending. So that's one reason why it could. They tie up the house and then they use it just to tie it up quickly, and then they just don't move forward with it. I don't love that strategy, but sometimes, you know, we got to help buyers get homes. On the listing agent side, I would say let's vet the person, the buyer out. Is that the scenario? Do they physically come and see the home? Because I think that's important so that we're not going on and off the market, but not every agent believes that. Another reason is it could have just fallen through with the inspection period. You know, I had this cardiologist I was helping out that was not from here. He's not used to Florida weather. Perfect house, right? This $800,000 house, perfect, gorgeous house up in New Tampa. And in the attic, there was a wet spot that the inspector said, hey, this is, you might want to check that. That is a WDO, which is wood destroying organism, or a fungus, or a mold from just an old leak somehow. He said, however, we tested it and there's no active moisture. Basically saying, I got to say this to cover my ass in a way, but you know, it should be okay. This is Florida. I let him know that was the only thing, but we can even treat it. And they even said, let's treat it. And he was like, no way, I want no part of this. Put it back on the market. And he moved on to a different home. So, you know, sometimes it's just situational, but yes, it is a thing here, unfortunately, that homes go under contract quickly and then sometimes go right back on the market. I'm running through these. Here we go. Best area for 40 plus couple with no kids and good jobs to buy in the 6 to 850 price range. A lot of moving parts, goes back to it. Lifestyle. Where are you working? Since you don't have kids, where are you working? 40 plus, are you homebodies? Because just because you're 40, you might like to just stay at home. Maybe going out isn't important to you. I can tell you, I'm in my 40s and I like going out every weekend, mostly with my kids, but we're always looking for, let's go to a concert, let's go to a date night, let's go, to the beach, something, let's do something. So 40 plus. The next thing I would say is, do you like new construction, or are you okay living in a 1970s home? Brian, how old's your house?
My house is 3 years old.
3 years old. What, you don't got to tell me your neighborhood, but what part of town are you in?
South Tampa.
South Tampa. So he basically went and found a 3-year-old home or a newer home in an area where they're surrounded by older homes. Let's just be honest, because we don't have, in the city, it's pretty much on a grid. We don't have new construction communities everywhere. So if you're good with an older home, you can move in the city, which is 20 minutes to anywhere in the city. You could also, if you got the budget for it, find a house that is newer, that somebody has knocked down grandma's house or an old outdated house and basically built like Brian's scenario. I personally live off the river and I live in a 1970s home. But at one point I lived up in the suburbs and I lived in a mid 90s home. And then if you want to go out even further, like to our, let's call it 30 to 40 minutes all around Tampa, I can get you brand new. And then it depends on the suburb, and probably the most active of all the suburbs is West of Chapel. So I hope that helps, but best thing I could tell you is reach out to my team. We could dive into that further, get a little more personal with you, and we can help you narrow down maybe 1 or 2 areas that would work for you. Cooper coming back with, which new construction builders have the lowest interest rates that you've seen? They all run specials and they usually run them for about 2 weeks. The lowest interest rate I've seen are going to be, just knowing new construction, are on the models that they need, that are furthest down the production line. So if you pick a house and it's 9 months out, building from dirt, they're not going to give you the biggest special. The biggest special is the one that they already started pre-building, and it's about a month or 2 months out. It's still in inventory. It hasn't gone for whatever reason. They're going to say, hey, let's keep this moving. We've got a special for you. So that's the best offer. But when you're ready to buy something, reach out to us, because we can look at all of them and kind of help you out with that. I do think that there's not going to be a massive gap between one or the other, but they do tend to run specials, and that's going to change all the time from builder to builder. Got a lot of questions coming in. I love it, guys. Brian, jump in on any of this, by the way, because you know Tampa pretty well. What would be the best location
for a family with 1 dog and 1 kid, 2 years old, that are moving from Brazil to Tampa? I live in South Tampa. I've got a family, young kid, 2 dogs. I love South Tampa. There's so many great neighborhoods. You've got South Tampa, Carrollwood, even Oldsmar, Palm Harbor, West Chase, Lutz, Land O'Lakes, Wesley Chapel. There's so many. It goes down to what Adam said. It's based on lifestyle. You really need to do a needs analysis, kind of narrow in, because there's so many different pockets. Tampa's a very, very spread out city. It's not like everything's consolidated within, a 5 or 10 mile radius. It's spanned out 25, 30 miles. There's so many little pockets and neighborhoods within there. It really is going to be based on a needs analysis. Like, what's best for your family? What do you guys like to do? What's most important to you, to really kind of hone in on that?
Yep. Thank you, man. And I will say, going back to the suburbs with little kids, I like to be in the city because that's just old Tampa for me. And my life is surrounded by the city, everything, like the kids' school, everything they do. But so many people love the suburbs. And I'll be honest, if I wasn't from Tampa and I didn't know the things that I know, I'd probably be in one of those suburbs with like the lagoon with all the master plan communities, because every day the kids come home and it's like they see their schoolmates that are the public school that they're assigned to. And they're like, let's go to the park. Let's go to the playground. On the weekend, we're at the pool. Like that's what I see. If you're an outdoorsy person, you like to get out, because that's exactly what I would do with my kids. Let's see, Jazz, let me make sure I don't miss anything here.
Oh, I like Jenny's question. Which months are better to sell in Florida? Yeah.
I could kind of quickly jump into that. We sell all year round, but if I had to choose like when, a lot of times people want to get their kids specifically into school zones, which is going to lead me into one of the next questions. But they want to get their kids into school, and we start here in August. So spring, like I would say probably March to July. And I mean, you'll tell me on the mortgage side, I always see a little bit of a lull on September. Like right after that, it's like, whew.
Yeah, a lot of people go out of town. They're not really doing anything. Kids just went back to school. I noticed most people March to July and then October to December.
Yeah, I was going to say for some reason you would think nobody wants to move during the holidays. The last 2 years in a row, December has been my biggest year, my biggest month.
Last 6 years in a row, December's been my biggest month of the year.
Yep. And for any folks that are looking to buy new construction, I know she just asked about selling a house, but any folks looking to buy a new construction for whatever reason, all year they run specials. But if you happen to be around that fall time, usually their end of year is actually like October, November, depending on the builder. And sometimes you get a little extra nice deal. But I also say don't wait for that, because sometimes the prices went up when you could have bought it in March with a different deal and it would have been a better price than, October. What is the price range? I'm just rolling down here. I'm getting to all of them, guys. What is the price range of the homes constructed by West Bay and what percentage is wanted? Homes by West Bay, typically they're a mid-tier builder, like a tier 2 semi-custom builder. Their price range is typically mid to high fives. Really 600 is about where it starts, but mid to high fives all the way up to 1.5 million, depending on the community. And percentage, it kind of goes back to the beginning. It's just really more of the deposit. I mean, they'll do FHA, VA loans, 100% finance, but they're just going to want a deposit with it. And that's going to change. I'd have to call the builders. That fluctuates. At one point, they were like 5%, then 10%. Sometimes if it goes over a certain amount, especially if you're building from scratch, they're going to ask for a certain deposit. And when you go to the design center, if you go above that, they're going to ask for a certain amount of those upgrades that you put above that, because they're building a house for you and they don't want you to back out. Let's see. How's Meritage Home and Southern Homes new construction? Meritage Homes is okay. I've had a little bit of a plus and minus with them over the years. I'll be honest, I haven't sold a Meritage home in the last 2 years, maybe 1 year. So I don't really have a strong opinion on Meritage Home one way or the other. I had one that was way out of Tampa that we did not have a good experience with just because of a well and some certain issues. But I don't even know who Southern Homes is. Do you?
I don't think I've heard of Southern Homes before.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Southern Homes. Maybe I'm missing a word there, but I'm not sure who Southern Homes is, James. All right, Jess, this is the one I wanted to get to. What area is the top school district? So going back to a lot of times, like, where do I want to be, or what are the best places with kids? A lot of times it's surrounded by schools. So let me share my thing here. You can always reach out to us and we can send you this, or a lot of times you can get it in the videos we have. But Florida Department of Education, you can Google this and you can go to their website. This is way better. Sometimes I use niche.com and greaterschools.org because the parent leaves reviews, but those aren't always the strongest. This one is the actual Florida Department of Education, and it ranks it over the years too. You can go down here and rank things by elementary, middle, or high school. But like, let's just go to high school for a minute. We are Hillsborough County if you're looking at Tampa and the southern suburbs. And then on the northern suburbs, we're looking at Pasco County. So right here in Hillsborough County, I can tell you that there's a whole nother, if you go to their website, you can get a whole nother chart like this that is called the Schools of Excellence. And there's 4 schools on there, which is Newsom High School down in Lithia, Plant High School, which is in Tampa, that's in South Tampa. Then you're going to have Steinbrenner, which is in Lutz. And then I believe it was DeBartolo, which is in Lutz. So those are the 4 big ones. But if you go down here, where's it at? Right here, this line, you can start to go down and you can see grade A, grade A, grade A. You know, I've had so many people like, oh, I don't want to go to Epperson because it's a charter school. The charter school's in here, and it's a grade A. So a lot of times, like, don't just go off of what people say. A lot of these schools are new. You know, just because 4 years ago wasn't the best, sometimes it's updated because we've grown so much that the dynamic of the school has changed. So check this out. And then even though this might be an A, go ahead and take it a step further because it's your kids. It's a big priority. Maybe call the school and talk to them, and then maybe even schedule a tour when you're in town. That's what I would suggest as a parent. Okay? Hopefully that helped. All right, let's see. How's Bartow, Florida. What do you think about Bartow, Bryan?
I'd say Bartow's definitely up and coming. I mean, you can still get, obviously more bang for your buck there because you're going to be pretty far out of the cities at that point. So in terms of value, great value. In terms of things going on, not a ton going on. So it's a lifestyle.
Slower pace.
Do you want to stay at home but have a cheap payment and cheap home? Not so much cheap, but affordable home. Yes, perfect area.
All right, cool. I got two good back-to-back questions here about areas. What are the most upscale areas in Tampa? If we're just talking based on price points, if that's what you mean by upscale,
I'd say Odessa.
In a way. Say again?
Odessa, West Chase, Lutz, Carrollwood.
Yeah, West Chase, Lutz, Odessa, Carrollwood. Yeah, and then there's going to be pockets throughout. So, Lithia, it's way out there. But Fishhawk Ranch, that's what I think, because it's all based on school zone. It's going to carry that weight. Wesley Chapel's got a lot of nice pockets. Land O'Lakes has one or two little pockets in there that my clients really tend to go to. But you got to remember, sometimes these areas, like even when you say Apollo Beach, you got Waterset, or you got some of those communities along the bay. But some of the older areas, old fishing areas. So some of the older areas are just built in older. Like, you're not going to just rip all the older stuff down. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it is a blend here, right?
And I would say don't count out Pinellas County either. I mean, St. Pete, very, very upscale. I mean, downtown literally from my office, I'm in South Tampa right now. I can be in St. Pete in 15, 20 minutes. Does not take long. Downtown St. Pete, Shore Acres, Snow Isle, those are very upscale.
Yep. Then you're talking about Dunedin's got depending on your lifestyle, Dunedin's got a nice couple spots. Palm Harbor, Safety Harbor. And then, of course, if you really want to get into it, the Nonasassa has got a little pocket out there that's, a couple $1 million. I would say Keystone. If you want lakefront, Keystone up by Odessa has got beautiful lakefront living. And then if you want to go really exclusive, you can go places like Avila and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of pockets, man. But if you just want to go with the staples that everybody knows right off the rip is South Tampa, West Chase, parts of Lutz, Odessa, and then, pockets like Cheval, Avila, like where it's more community-based than it is area. Hope that helped. And then the next one is what's most walkable. This has been one of the biggest hurdles in Tampa is having walkable areas. And, cat's out the bag here. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I just had an interview with the mayor, and you're going to see that video coming up. Really cool thing that I got to sit down with her. And she described it the best. It's like the city is now trying to create this urban, part that we've always missed. Downtown used to be a place where like you go to work and at 5 o'clock it gets shut down. And now it's like the place to live, right? It's like the heartbeat of the city in a way. And so they're creating these neighborhoods like downtown Channel District, the Heights, Midtown. Now the West Shore area is getting developed. And then it's just all a part of like, how can we connect everything with trolley systems? And I'm telling you, Tampa is just on this path and the train has left the station. Like, it is turning into this really cool city. And it is a little bit of a juggling act for us here. But there's going to be a lot of walkable areas. As far as what's walkable right now, downtown, Channelside, parts of South Tampa, like Hyde Park, Bayshore, right in there.
Harbor
and
Island,
then I would
Davis
say
Island.
West Davis Island. Yep. I would say West Chase is semi-walkable because it'll give you that suburb feel, but it has that downtown Main Street area with all the shops and little eateries that the locals like to go to. So we don't have a lot. It would be mainly in the city, but like in the suburbs, you really don't have too many walkable areas from your neighborhood. Okay. I'm going to jump on this. Andy J. Does it make sense to buy in Wesley Chapel working in downtown? I've done that commute doesn't seem bad. Yeah, man, I like Wesley Chapel to Tampa. Now I know, just like with anything in Tampa, those high time traffic hours, which, we were very residential. So we have a lot of kids going to school in the morning and everybody going to work. And then when school lets out 3 to 5 o'clock and work lets out, it's crazy. Outside of those hours, man, I can get from my house in the city to Wesley Chapel in about 30 minutes. I mean, it's just all interstate, cruising up 75. So I like it. We got another question on builders. What's construction quality and customization opportunities? It's a tough one because a little bit goes down to style. A lot of them really use the same contractors, which is kind of funny. So you're going to see that the same workers hopping around to different builders. I personally really like Homes by West Bay when I see their style, their Florida, driven. If you're talking about that middle tier, because when I think of what's the best construction or what's the best customizations, they're right in that middle tier, and their big thing is going for that wow factor with the tall ceilings. And they're in the most communities. However, they're also known for being in those master plan communities. So I would say if you're okay with that, then Homes by West Bay is pretty cool. Same with Biscayne Homes, which you'll see in some of those lagoon communities. Outside of that, Taylor Morrison has some really good builds. You're going to see MI Homes has really ramped it up this year, as well as Pulte. But, just like with everything, like if we talk to Pulte is going to be building from like the 500,000 all the way to like over $1 million. So their product, they offer different levels of customization. So, when I say Pulte to somebody, you might have one person like, they're all right. And then one person goes, man, I love my house, because they have different products. So get with us, get with my team, reach out to us so we can help you understand the different products for builders, because it's not as simple as just firing off one builder, especially the ones that have different levels of quality upgrades.
Adam, have you come into contact with Toll Brothers by any chance? That's a pretty big national builder. I know they've come into town recently over the last couple of years here.
Yeah, so Toll Brothers is a big nationwide builder. People love them. Here, they were supposed to be building in Morejon, and then they backed out for whatever reason. I think Homes by West Bay and Casa Fresca took their section of land. They were also supposed to be in Two Rivers, which is coming up in Zephyr Hills, and I don't see their name on the website anymore, so I don't know if they're going to be there. What I do know is that they have a 55-plus community that's opening up in Waterset down in Apollo Beach, and they do have their own exclusive community in Innisbrook, which is a phenomenal golf course community, and that's getting ready to break ground. I want to say mid to late summer. So, starting to see little splashes. I also saw Perry Homes from Houston, and I saw Richmond American Homes, which is top 5 builder in the country, open up their first communities here in Tampa as well. So we're starting to get a few extra builders, bringing that variety, which I do like.
Andy J asked, oh, sorry, you want me to hop in?
Yeah, man. Sorry, I clicked on this one real quick. Nicole, are insurance costs typically less for new homes? What are good resources to look up insurance costs when purchasing a home in Tampa area? Yes. So I always use my personal example. I live in about a 2,700 square foot home. My insurance being in the city, mainly being a 1970s home, right? So even though I have an older roof, new windows, and all that, these homes just are not built up to the same code. And don't get me wrong, they're shit brick houses. They've been here since the 70s and nothing's happened. But love my terms too. But I give it to them real. But they're just not, they don't have all those updates that insurance companies look for, like well insulated, new windows, hurricane straps on the roofs. They don't have all those things. So I don't get all those insurance discounts. So to answer it straight, I pay about $6,000 this year on insurance. I actually dropped that down into the 5s. Keep in mind, I could probably get it to like $4,800, but I actually pay to cover my pipes as well. So I pay a premium to cover my pipes in the walls because I have older pipes and I don't want a pipe leak. So it's just personal choice. I upgraded my insurance, but I pay about $6,000. That same house as a brand new home would be probably $2,000 a year or less. So a third of the price for brand new construction. And you could almost say the same thing about utility bills, because again, it's built and it's more well insulated. So new construction, you save on utility bills as well as insurance, but the older homes, location a lot of times. And the other thing I would say is, unfortunately, it's not as cookie cutter. Like I have a very unique looking home from the 70s and I get to customize it the way I need. So pros and cons there. What'd you have, Brian? I'm sorry, man. Andy J, you said?
Oh, Andy J was asking best month and cheapest for rent as well. And I would say, unfortunately, Andy, I don't think that it exists. When a tenant moves out, the landlord's going to look at what other properties like it are renting it, or what prices they're renting at, and that's what they're going to list it at. I do know rentals are still pretty competitive. Adam, I'm sure you've probably seen it too. There's not a tremendous amount of rentals out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rental, and this is going to actually ask. So I don't deal with rentals, first off. So, because I'm so focused on the market, it's a different market, but I'm so focused on the, real estate market, the buying and selling. It just, we don't have, and not only that, but we don't have the resources for the rental market. Here, I always say when people ask, like, hey, can you help me with a rental? I'm like, I could, but it's kind of like the Wild West. I helped somebody get a $4,500 a month rental and they gave me $50 commission. It took me 3 months to help them find it. And it was a little bit of a nightmare. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably not good business sense. But because of that reason, and because they don't always list them in the MLS, we just, we don't often get those. We're not able to help. It's hard to be a good resource. But off of that, Damian actually said, live on Water Street, love the Water Street area. But any new apartments coming to the Hyde Park area? Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. What I can say is that entire area and everywhere, there's spots coming up left and right with new apartments being built. A lot of them are breaking ground. And as you know, it takes a little bit of time to get those up and running, but there are some good options. I could look into it, but yeah, again, I just don't focus on rentals as much. Bryan, you don't know of anything, do you?
No, I don't really come into contact on rentals unless it's obviously financing investors who want to acquire rentals.
Yeah. Andy J, what's the future outlook on these prices? Are they coming down due to big inventory increases, or is this time different? So yeah, quick answer for you. And I don't have that perfect crystal ball, but here's what I would say is this new inventory influx is very recent. The second thing I would say is we are already in a shortage. Even with that influx, we're only at 3 months inventory, okay? Buyers are there and there's a ton of demand. So let's not confuse that with there's no demand here. Just part of it is a little bit of like, you're kind of still having that like, well, should I put the trigger? Should I not? They're getting out of their house in a different area. So the demand will come. And I feel like we need this little bit of a cushion on inventory. But remember, 3 months of inventory is nothing. 3 months of inventory is it's still a seller's market. We need 6 months to get us into where it's like a neutral market, right? 3 months is not much. So I like this cushion. It's really nice. But if interest rates, let's say something happens with the election and interest rates come into the low to mid fives. Bryan, you said this stat a long time ago, right? Isn't it for like every 1%, there's 8 million buyers?
Every 1% that interest rates drop, 5 million more people become buyers nationwide. So there you go. It's a good amount of competition.
Yeah, there you go. So instantly the competition will go up and that inventory will start to get eaten up. So I like the cushion. I don't foresee this. I don't foresee prices dropping from that. What I do see, could they incrementally drop? Yes. But if prices go down 5% compared to what has happened over the last few years, that's okay. It's not going down 10, 20%. What I will say is that I think it's going to start to change the habits of the sellers saying, hey, we need to put these houses in a better light. We need to start fixing up some of these things. It's no longer can you list a fixer-upper and then anybody buys it. We need to be a little bit smarter. So I think it's just going to change the habits of people, and homes will sit a little bit longer, but they'll still sell. It's a seller's market. So I just don't see that changing things just yet. Tampa's still a hot market, even if an article says it's cooling. Cooper, closest suburb to downtown Tampa and the beaches. Downtown Tampa and the beaches are two different areas. Downtown Tampa is in Tampa. The beaches are across the bridges, about 35 minutes away. So if you want a closest suburb to downtown Tampa, you're going to be probably Riverview or Brandon, which will be at least 20 to 30 minutes, depending on where you live. If you're going to go deep into Riverview or Brandon, like 30 minutes, then I would also maybe throw in that Wesley Chapel could be that. if we're specifically talking about new construction. If we're talking about just suburb feel, I'm okay with 1970s, Lake Mag, Carrollwood, parts of Temple Terrace. Those are 15, 20 minutes from downtown. And then if we're talking about a suburb, I mean, there's a lot of suburbs that are close to the beaches, but if we're talking like middle grounds, Tampa to the beaches, I would say West Chase is probably one of them, even though it's still a 30+ minute drive. And then you could start to look at like slower areas that are not big cities like St. Peter, Clearwater, like Palm Harbor, Safety Harbor, Dunedin. Those are really good pockets, unincorporated / suburbs or towns that would be close to the beaches. Let's get one or two more here. And then, you know, we've been running for like a good hour. So we'll maybe wrap it up with Bryan, and then that's it. So CDD is not just a loan. There is a loan part in an operating cost. Operating costs can and will increase, and usually is as high as CDD loan fee itself. I have seen CDDs that are there for maintaining. You know, I personally have not seen CDDs, especially in these new construction scenarios or any of these communities. I have not seen them go through the roof. You know, we're not talking condos, we're talking community, and most of these communities have pretty good balanced books, and they plan it out pretty well. I don't see anything skyrocketing on people. I think that's more older times of condos. Needless to say, I'm not saying it can't. It's just you can track things and you can see how are the roadways, how are things being maintained, and yearly you can even check in and see how are the HOA monies being funded. So it's the best thing I can say. As any homeowner, you got to check in on those things. Cooper, you're welcome, and everybody else, you're welcome. Bryan, tie a bow on this, man. This market, where do you think we're headed rest of the year? Just crystal ball.
I think we're heading for stabilization. You know, the last 5 years have been absolutely crazy. You know, you couldn't even come for air. A normal market's 3 to 5% appreciation. I mean, we just saw that, right? What, 2023 to 2024 is like 4.9 or 4.1%. Spot on. I think everything's starting to get back to normal. So I'm happy with it. Like Adam said, if we can get back right around that 6 months of inventory, perfect.
Love it. Yeah, we don't. People think that we love these homes flying. We do, but we also would rather find homes that buyers like. We like the negotiations. We like playing realtor, right? We like to have that push and pull and finding the homes for people that they're happy with, and not happy with in 2 years and then turn around and sell it. It's like, hey, let's find that home that, you know, you raise your family, or you plant your roots, or you found it because you're a young professional. This is your first starter home, and it's just a really good decision. Like, that's what real estate is. And when it's more predictable, it's easier to make those decisions because you have more clarity, right? And more confidence. So, you know, let's hope that we go to a little bit more of a balance. Otherwise, we're still navigating the market the best way we can. And Bryan, thank you for joining us. Guys, I'm going to leave his information in the description of the video in case you have any mortgage questions. You can reach directly out to Bryan. And of course, myself and my team for any of your real estate needs. Thank you again. You know, we'll see you on that next video. So see you soon.
Thanks, guys.